All right. First and foremost, Dawson with DDOG Pickleball.
Cody with Dinkin' Donuts.
All right. And today's podcast is brought to you by the Boston Pickleball Club. They have the third leg tournament coming up January 1st, January 30th, and February 1st that weekend. Definitely check that out. Our code DDOG will save you money at checkout on that. There is also an additional Boston Pickleball code that will save you that I will link to this when we post it. And secondly,
we got Flick Weight for your Flick Weight coins, tungsten tape, and the new Flick Weight bands to go around the throat of the paddle. Definitely check them out. It'll enhance your game tremendously.
Yes, super appreciation to Flick Weight. They've done a lot of work for us in the past, stuff like that. I've mentioned it in a variety of times, including in my review of them, but those weighted bands are like heaven sent for me. I swear by those things, especially that 3. So yeah, and then I'll give it a quick mention. Dinkin' Donuts shop, check it out for sure.
Yeah, DinkinDonutsShop.com and D-Dog Pickleball will also have some merch in there very, very soon.
Yes. Very excited for that. Obviously, as you guys can see, I am not in my studio right now because I'm not home. That is perfectly okay. I'm just going to give that kind of precursor here. So Cody, who is in his studio in his home, is going to be doing a lot of the showing paddles today and stuff like that for that portion of this. But first, before we start with that, how's your break, man? What were you up to?
Break was good. Been a little MIA out of the house for a bit. I was over in a place called Sealy Lake doing some snowmobiling, or attempting to do some snowmobiling. There wasn't a lot of snow, so it made it a little difficult, but still got out. I think like 5 out of the 7 days of total riding that we were there. Always good, always fun. The kiddo was on his snowmobile for the 2nd year, and he's getting the feel of it a little bit more. Not ready for the big trails yet, but he could rip around in the parking lot just fine.
I mean, hey, that sounds awesome, dude. I did not travel for the break. I did take a break though. I took about like a week. I just spent it with loved ones, family, all that. Got some stuff done outside of pickleball as well. Got ready for more stuff done in pickleball. We have a lot of new paddles coming. In the end of January here, going into February, as well as going into the beginning of March, that I know we're going to be covering or talking about both on the pod and on our individual channels. So definitely, if you haven't yet, subscribe to those, check them out, give them a follow on Instagram, a like on YouTube for sure.
Shoot us a comment.
So I think that's
shoot us a comment.
Really Yeah, we have started touching on shoes too. I know that. I know you're working on some as well. I've been working on some as well. That's something, I don't know how far I'll go into that just because we'll see. It's fun, it's different. But yeah, so, all right, let's dive into paddles here. I know that you have been away, so you have not got to hit some of these that I'm going to mention. And vice versa, I have not got to hit some that you're going to mention. But let's start with the Nexus Bright Star. All right, Cody's holding it up right now. This is a Gen 3 elongated paddle. I was talking with the owner of Nexus for a bit about this paddle, and he said that the target market for this was the beginner to intermediate player. Having played with it for about 2 weeks now, as I would say a fairly advanced player, I think it's good for that market, but I do also think that you can be a high-level player and play with this thing and crush balls. I think it's definitely more towards kind of that top of all court kind of category, but I think that it's a very fun paddle, and I'll tell you this much. When you walk on court with that thing, minimum of one person is going to ask you, what is that paddle? Because the colors pop.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you're playing on courts that are a dark color.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Did you get measurements on it?
I did. It's a true elongated shape.
Okay.
I believe.
It feels light.
I don't have it really memorized perfectly. It's like a 16.5 by 7.5, something like that. I can toss them in here if they're a little bit different point-wise, but it's pretty much a true elongated paddle. There's nothing out of the norm there. The handle's big enough for two hands for sure. I was
Yeah,
hitting plenty of two-handed backhands with it. It's lighter than your
it's
normal
super light.
elongated for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that personally. I like my elongateds very light. And then it's not paint grit, to be clear, even though it feels and looks like it kind of would be, in my opinion. I was told a CFC layup with one additional layer at the time of this recording. I'm going to double back and confirm that when I finish my review of it. I just did first impressions of them pretty recently on my channel. Those should be either published by the time we put this out or probably within a few days of when we put it out if you want a little bit more in-depth on it. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun paddle. I feel like that's a paddle you can put in anyone's hands and they can play it stock, they can play it with weight. I don't really feel like it's one of those ones where it needs a ton of modification.
It feels really light for me. It definitely feels like it's gonna need some weight.
I did add weight as well. I'll say this though, my experience with it stock was surprisingly better than what I thought it would be. I will admit though, I ended up doing 2 of the 3-gram pods in the middle on it, just like smack in the middle, just like that. And then I tried like a little 3-inch tape on the throat and then eventually took that off and just stuck with the middle pods. And that kind of added enough overall weight that it didn't give that like tingy lightweight feeling that I know you're probably worried about from feeling how light that is stock out of the box, which is a legitimate thing, especially with the elongated paddles, because I feel like they have a little more ting to them than the hybrids and wide bodies just because the weight is more spread out in the face. But yeah, it's a fun paddle. Definitely encourage you to try it out. I believe it's $109.99 without code.
Okay.
And after code, I think after code it brings it to $99. Like, that's a pretty good deal for a Gen 3 elongated paddle, you know. I know it's 2026, but hey, I think at the start of 2024, I don't think there was a Gen 3 at that price point. So,
no way.
For about a year, a little over a year, that's a pretty good margin deal there for people, for sure. So, I will touch on this super briefly because I know there's going to be people curious about it in the comments. I did receive the RPM Friction Pro 14 millimeter. I'm working on getting one to Cody as well. He does not have one as of right now, but we're going to fix that in a matter of time. I have hit with it for a whopping 1 hour. When I say that this is very, very brief first impressions, we're talking like not even really long enough time to give first impressions. I liked it though. Personally, I was a fan, and if you look at the paddle kind of off of court specs wise, 14 millimeter and elongated are not usually my 2 favorite things. So me saying that alone, I think is a big compliment right there as is. I was definitely a fan of it. I'm looking forward to putting more time on it. I think this is the type of paddle that Cody would absolutely love in terms of a spec sheet. You know,
it
I'm sure
definitely
he's looking
sounds that
forward
way.
to putting time on it as well. But yeah, so I'll put more time on those, and we'll come back with more kind of in-depth thoughts to this. I know you have a paddle or two that I haven't hit yet, if you want to touch on those.
Yeah. So we'll jump into the Gator Strike Armor Gen 5X. Let me pull it out of the thing. This one does have a lot of gameplay, some floor scrapes, and everything. So this is an elongated handle, carbon fiber face. Real quick, the Gator Strike is offering a 50% off code on their website right now, which I think brings it down to like right around 150, 160, right around there. It has a 3 foam layer core, which is kind of like what we're seeing across with all of the foam cores right now. So it has EPP, EVA, and a PVA intra-core. Like I said, raw carbon fiber face, but if it shows it, it has the Gator Strike logo 3D'd in there. So super gritty paddle, definitely hits like a beast. I don't have the swing weight because I don't have a machine to measure my swing weight or my twist weight, but it doesn't feel super heavy. It's probably around 116, 117, right around there, kind of in the common elongated style. 2-hand backhand, easy, and I'm not hanging off or anything like that. Hands fit just fine, and I got chunky, meaty hands, so going for a 2-hand backhand is a little bit something I'm looking for. They're saying that it's a 5.4 length grip, but it feels longer than that.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's because of how the top portion of this cuts down at the throat, if it just allows you to get a little bit higher grip placement to get that two-handed, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It feels longer than a 5.4. So I'm assuming they're just measuring, this section, but that throat cut definitely adds a little bit more for good feel. According to their website, they're saying it's a 5 point on the twist weight, balance points at 24, and the swing weight's 109. 109 feels really, really light compared to what I'm feeling when I'm playing with it, because I don't have any weight on it at all, and I've been playing with it just stock. And if I felt like it was 109, usually I'd be weighting it up, and it feels good and balanced the way it is right now. And so I'm digging it. They're super cool. They're super responsive. And you have one in the mail. It should have been there, I was hoping, by today. But I shipped out last Friday, so it should be there probably anytime.
Okay. Show that handle again real quick with the taper there for everybody. Yeah. So you see where that kind of white begins to curve upward there on the edge guard? Yeah. So this is kind of what I call like a low taper there that paddle has. So it's tapering down lower than, like, I'll use the 11.624 Pegasus as an example, because it has a very high taper where, like, literally the curve is right here and the handle is right there. There's no room in between. So what Cody was saying earlier is that just gives you more room. Like, you can grip a little higher there, and it gives you a little more room whether you put grip there or you just put a hand there on the direct carbon fiber or whatever material it is face. It's personal preference. I usually like a little bit of room personally, but there are paddles I enjoy that have none as well. So I think that's good. I don't think 5.4 is a bad place to be with the handle.
No, and like I said, it feels longer. And the thing that's interesting is, if you can see it, it's not rounded, so it's kind of angled, and then angled back down before it shoots down the sides. It kind of gives me, I've never hit with the Yola Agassi, but it kind of gives me a similar Agassi shape, and it feels good. I'm just not sure the reasoning for the different cuts up here instead of rounding it. Maybe something I might have to chat with the owner or one of the co-owners about, to get kind of what they found was the reasoning for squaring off those edges.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that. I have hit the Yola Agassi sparingly a couple times for probably not even a full game worth of play, but I know it's a shape a lot of people are fans of, in particular former tennis players, because it's got a much higher kind of sweet spot to it than a lot of the other Yolas, like the Yola Perseus. So that could be a piece too there. I've seen a couple people do shapes in this way now. There's another one coming from another company that I'm forgetting the name of that has this similar shape. So I would actually be curious to hear what the owner says on that and why that specific cut for the paddle mold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd also love to hear, I'm sure once you put more time on it, you'll be able to answer this. I'd love to hear what it makes it Gen 5 as well. So
yeah, I'm not sure what the Gen 5. I've seen the internal core and what they're doing with that. I'll get confirmation. I'm pretty sure I can share those photos. If I can, we can put some photos up here on the screen so people can see what that looks like. But I'll get confirmation before I leak any of those photos.
Yeah, that's fine. We can always do that when we touch back on the Gator Strike too. That's not a problem. I'm going to have it as well, so I'll reach out as well for x-rays and all that, if I don't x-ray it myself.
And
cool. I'm actually really curious about that paddle.
Yeah. Before we jump into the other two paddles that I know you and I both got some gameplay, I'm just going to flash a couple of the photos that are going to be coming. We'll be discussing probably on the future pod. We got the Alpha Omega Hercules, Gen 4 paddle, all foam, and one that I've been hearing a lot of good news about, which is the Gherkin Draco. And this one is sitting at 8 ounces and a swing weight of 111. And that's from the factory. So I'll be playing with that one here in a little bit, and on our next pod we'll be able to have some discussions about that one, and I'll be doing a review on it, of course. But right now I don't have any information on them, so we'll have to just stay tuned for the next one.
I'm glad to see Alpha Omega's making paddles again, though. That's exciting
Yeah, I know
as
he's been
well.
working on.
I was about to
I've chatted
say,
with him a little bit. He's been
last
working
time
on
I hit
it.
a paddle for them was probably 2 years ago at this point.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, that was, I think that was probably the beginning of 2024 was the last time I hit an Alpha Omega paddle.
Okay.
That's exciting. I'm glad to see they're still kind of chipping away at it. And then, as always, Gherkin, I know Gherkin's been doing a lot lately, so I'll be excited to
Yeah.
see what you think about that one as well.
You have
But
one of those on
yeah,
the way too.
so, ooh,
Not
that's
the Draco.
exciting. That's okay. That's okay. But yeah, let's touch on. I'm gonna let you lead here. What's the next paddle you want to touch on?
Let's go Cyclotron.
Yeah. Okay.
I know you and I both got some gameplay with that one.
Yes. So, real quick, just for reference for the audience here, Cyclotron kind of just sent us. I think they listened to the pod as well, and they just sent us what they thought we'd prefer the most in paddle shapes. So I got the wide body, and Cody got the elongated. I
Yeah,
mean,
so the
hey, that's
max.
fine. That's fine with me personally. But the one thing that doesn't do is let us kind of compare across all three shapes in the paddle line. So we both really can't speak towards their hybrid per se.
Right.
Just for any
Yeah.
of those curious about that, I do know there is three shapes in this paddle line. They're all releasing at the same price point. I believe it's around $200 before discount code, and after discount code, I know it drops kind of in that 180-ish range. So, it's a 14 millimeter Gen 4 paddle, which I actually think is very intriguing because there's not a lot of 14 millimeter Gen 4 paddles. I'm gonna let you talk. Tell us about your playing experience with this, Cody.
It took me a little bit to get used to it. I play so many paddles that are in that, 16 millimeter. So it definitely felt a little bit more like snappy, crisp, poppy off the face. And it just took me a sec to kind of like dial it in when I was first playing with it. But after probably like game one, maybe even half a game, I was at home and comfortable with all my shots. Definitely for the elongated it hits heavy. And I'm not sure if it's just a new swing thing, but a lot of my shots now are just diving super hard. Like as they cross the top of the net, they're just already like dipping hard. And so like everybody that I was talking to or that I was playing with are making comments that my drives were insane. My drives had a ton of spin that were just like, where people are normally getting ready to take the ball. These are just dipping like right in front of their paddle. So it's like the timing was off for the opponents. But again, I've been playing with everything stock, which is something I try to do when I'm first playing with paddles because it gives you a good feel. Felt a little head heavy, which works for me for heavy swings. I didn't really find anything I didn't dislike about it. It's a 14 millimeter. It just feels a little bit unstable for me at the 14 millimeter mark. So I think just a little bit of weight along like the 9 and 3 sides of it might help, stiffen it up a little bit and give it a little bit more of a dense feel than more of like a crisp, like quick response feel. I just felt like, it took a while to get used to it, but if you're looking for something that's smaller and lighter and it can hit heavy, it's a great paddle. It's fast. I need to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I actually completely agree with definitely the light and kind of the hits fast thing. Mine, I did stock time, just like Cody was talking about. That's a lot of both of our review processes is, if not at least one, it's several stock hits usually before any form of iteration. I kind of come to find with this paddle, I think I went through 6 different weight configuration changes. And I think part of that could be is that the wide body is always like, if the wide body is heavier than the elongated in a series, something is seriously off there manufacturing wise in terms of variance. And so the wide body for this series for me was extremely light. So weight adding to me felt like it was a must. I think the one I ended up going with was 0.5 of the Beyond Measure tungsten tape in the top corners, and then 1 gram of the Beyond Measure tungsten tape in the bottom corners. So I did the all 4 corners thing, but I wanted the bottoms to be a little heavier than the top. So I went with 3 inches here, and I'm like just under 4 inches on the bottom. And that really opened it up for me while keeping the paddle still controllable. Because much like Cody did just mention, this is a 14 millimeter foam paddle. I know they mention in some of the, marketing and description that they talk about it feels like a 16. And I will attest, I think the 14 millimeter paddles of 2025 and 2026 here feel way better than all of the prior year's 14 millimeter paddles. I still remember some of those older 14 millimeter paddles, and it felt like you were hitting with basically plywood. So it's like, you know, I think that that's a major improvement, especially when you go below 14 millimeter. It matters a lot even more, as well as kind of that arm forgiveness while having that stronger pop and power within a controlled ratio. I completely agree with you on the spin piece too. I thought this was one of the spinnier paddles I've hit in a long time. I thought it never felt like unreal gritty to me, like some paddles kind of come in.
It
But
doesn't.
it's sneaky gritty. Like, I think it's a bit more of a dwell and a pocketing scenario with this paddle than a face gritness scenario.
Yeah, because
And
it's
I actually was a really big fan of it because of that. The thing with the wide body also that definitely interests me, that a few companies are doing this now, is they're going with the shape of it's almost square, and then they do kind of, just like Cody showed on that Gator Strike, those like edgy corners kind of. And I actually compared this a lot to the Alpha Pro Power Pegasus 16 millimeter because they're an identical shape and they feel identical to a degree. I know that is a Gen 3 paddle, and that being the big difference there, along with the extra about millimeter and a half. My cyclotron actually measured at about 14.5 for the millimeter when I did the millimeter measurement. So it is a little thicker than 14 millimeter, but not really by much. Not enough that you could raise it a whole number or anything like that. So, you know, there's a lot of interesting pieces with this paddle. I do think if you're someone that wants easy offense from a paddle, this is a great paddle for that. I think that as long as you're comfortable with, I think you have to hit a 14 millimeter prior to this paddle, is what I'm saying. Like you have to, let's say you're coming, I don't know, let's say you're coming from a Carbon Genesis, you know, 2 shape, and you want, you know, the Bear 001 wide body shape of this. I think that's a good transition. Whereas I think coming from like, I don't know, a thick 16 or an 18 or even something like a Lux that's, you know, 19 to 20 millimeters, coming down to this 14, it's going to feel like a really big jump.
yeah.
So I think that this is a paddle for someone that really likes the thinner millimeters, wants a bigger sweet spot while still maintaining power. Because to me, this was a power paddle. I didn't have this anywhere near all court personally. You know, I don't think it's a top tier power paddle in terms of power, but I don't think it's at the very bottom either. I think it's probably towards like the top of the bottom, pushing into the middle, at least for the wide body. Obviously, elongated, I'm sure hits a little harder. You could probably put that in the middle then, would be my guess. And yeah, I mean, look, it's a fun paddle. I don't know if you experienced this. My only really big dislike with it was the handle. Like the handle just was like, and it's funny too, because I normally like my handles really thin, but the handle stock, like even with an overgrip on, was just like obscenely thin. Like I could feel the bevel edges underneath both to the point that like it felt like I had to put another overgrip on almost.
That's
And so I
interesting.
don't know if that was, yeah. Yeah, you know, a
You're
lot
making
of
me
things
look
can
at it now.
happen
I didn't really
in
notice it, but
manufacturing.
you can like really you can see the
You can see
bevels.
it kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see them. Yeah, if you're going to get this paddle, in my opinion, it's the stock undergrip. Go get one of those thick overgrips like the Pickleball Effect ones or like the Turna Megatac. Toss that on and then toss on your normal overgrip. That would be
Yeah.
my suggestion personally. Other than that, plenty good paddle in my personal and professional opinion in terms of everything else. I just think that was the one thing that kind of bugged me throughout playing with it, especially because that's where you're holding the paddle. You know, you
Yeah.
spend the majority of the time touching that. So it's like it can be annoying if it's not sitting how you want it to sit in your hand and stuff like that. But it is a really good paddle, and 180 is a competitive price in today's market for sure. I know they're working on other stuff as well. They're going to have a lot of paddles kind of coming down the road here along with these. So I would definitely, you know, keep an eye on them. I did ask them why 14 millimeter, and they gave me the same thing I kind of chatted about earlier, that the 14 is just what they felt was the most universal, easy to mold with the foam, and that they can kind of tune it, kind of like Carbon talks about with the Genesis and the Waves. They can tune it to kind of play like a 16 or like a 13 and stuff like that. It's tricky for me to kind of say how well tuned this is and to what direction. I would say this leans more towards a true 14, but I do also think it's more forgiving than, I don't know, like a Gen 2 14 millimeter paddle, for example, without putting specific paddle names in there. So it was a good experience, though, with this paddle. I'm not going to lie. Contacting and chatting with them was not the most fun experience for me personally, but I'll leave that there. And thankfully that has been resolved, and in the future I'm hoping will be less complicated. They are in a different time zone, though. I'll give them this. They are in a different time zone, though, too, to be fair. And it's a bit more of a time difference than you and I, so I'll give them that. But yeah, so that was the cyclotron. All right. I know you got at least one more we can talk about here, so let's rock it.
Yeah. We're going to double back on cyclotron real quick. You were talking about the handle and how it felt a little bit more narrow and a little bit more like smaller, and you needed an extra grip. Turn into the next paddle we're talking about, which is Beyond Measure. The Beyond Measure does feel like quite a bit like denser, like in the hand, and just it feels a little bit like I don't feel like it's there's definitely a noticeable size circumference difference in the handle that's like, oh, like I didn't really notice it before until like directly compare it to another handle.
Yeah.
And this one's got some play time.
It's because you're not a handle snob. That's why. That's exactly why. It's because you're focused on the things you're supposed to be focused on, which is good. Like,
yeah.
It's just for those of us that are very fine-tuned to the paddle in our hands and think and observe these things, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think most players would notice these things. So
no. So here we are. You spoke it into existence. You were making fun of me on the last pod because I didn't have a control paddle, and I had to dig through the archive to find a control paddle. And 2026, as we sit right now, the Ronin is my, I didn't start playing with this one until right at the end. So here we go. It's the control paddle for 2026 for me so far. Mark it January 17th.
Okay. The elongated Ronin, right?
Yep, the elongated Ronin from Beyond Measure.
It's the elongated Ronin. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. I mean, how much time? You have a lot of time on this, or are you still working through this one?
This review is ready to be done. I just need to record it. It's just been hard because I've been out of town. I've got quite a bit of gameplay on that. All my ball dust is still on there. So it won't be the prettiest photos, but it'll be some photos nonetheless. I like it for a control paddle, but it doesn't, because it is control paddle, it doesn't fit my style of gameplay. I like that it's the elongated style shape, which, if you're comparing shapes, the elongated isn't typically your control shape of a paddle. Usually that's your standard or your wide body. Somebody that likes to play with an elongated style paddle and control, it definitely just made me be more relaxed in my gameplay, a little bit more so sporadic and not overall shots, but strategic and placement, and wait for the opportunity to present itself, real put away, than just trying to like force a ball, at the opponent and just wait for a mistake or for them just to move out of the way and let it go by them. So it definitely made me change how I play, which is probably a good thing for me to do, is to be able to slow down and not just rely on pure drive and power, and this actually gets a little bit more strategic in the gameplay and placement. I liked it. The one thing that I don't like about it is for somebody that's trying to go to a two-hand backhand and work on that, I definitely have to hang almost like my pinky and almost like my ring finger off the paddle to be able to get a comfortable like second-hand grip on there. And so that's one thing that I did notice, is it's a super long face but kind of a short handle. It reminds me of the old school Selkirk paddles, the super long face with the short little stubby handles. It reminds me similar of that. Maybe not as stubby, but definitely a smaller handle than I would like. But they're coming out with, two other shapes. They're coming out with a standard and a hybrid. Those also, from talking with them, don't match the typical gameplay style to that shape. And so it'll be interesting to try those out and see how they perform compared to the control version of the elongated style paddle.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat in terms of the Tui with this shape. It's not my favorite two-handed backhand shape just because it's kind of that old school elongated shape is how I'll call it. I do think it is doable personally, but you're forcing it a bit in my opinion in terms of like you're talking about, you have multiple fingers kind of off there. It's
Hmm.
tight. It's not the most relaxed two-hander per se. But, I do think it is still a good shape, and that shape brings its own benefits for sure. I think that with the smaller handle, you get that extra face room as well, which can be
Yeah.
rewarding in different ways, for sure. And kind of much like you mentioned, with it being, kind of a control focused elongated paddle, it brings unique benefits and cons to the table. The big benefit I could think of with this thing is dinking. I feel like whenever I dink with an elongated paddle, you just put the face down, the paddle's right there. You're not getting any lower, anything like that.
Hmm.
Whereas like with a lot of these wide bodies and hybrids, you have to like kind of bend down a little further even with it in addition to putting the face down. So I think that that's a really big benefit, especially with this being a control focused paddle.
Yeah.
I do a lot of testing, and I will admit a lot of my control category right now is a lot of Gen 1, Gen 1.5, and Gen 2 paddles. So compared to those, this is like bottom of all court to me. But if we're
Hmm.
going kind of Gen 3 and Gen 4 alone, 100% this is a control paddle. Unlike your best of 2025 control paddle picks. But,
Hey,
hey, to
hey.
each their own.
I wasn't the only one, and I showed you that.
No, you weren't. You weren't. I will give you that. What's his name? Brian at Building Pickleball. He had that thing in there too. And I messaged, I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and he was like, what, man? No, but look, I think that this is a paddle that would benefit more people than we'll realize is kind of how I
Absolutely.
look at this paddle. Is this paddle has a lot of benefits and pros to people's games, but because of this fixation and chase of power, not as many people as probably should would look into paddles like this. But like you said, I am really curious to see what they do with this wide body and this hybrid. They both look amazing from the few marketing photos I've seen, and they've been
Hmm.
flashing on our stories and their stories and stuff. So I am really curious to get those in hand coming up here soon and actually get some testing on those. Also, I do want to make this point. The owner of Beyond Measure, wicked cool dude. Like
Oh
this
yeah, he's
is
super cool.
look, when Cody and I do this is a lot of, us reaching out or them reaching out. It's a lot of back and forth. He just makes it very easy. He's very chill with it. He's very simple. Like, we have our own things to do outside of the pickleball space as well that take up a lot of our time. So when it's a very easy and seamless transaction, it makes it a lot easier for us to review the paddles and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that personally. I think that's shout out worthy always.
Yeah.
He did also send us a ton of other things that he did not need to send us by any
Hmm.
means, but we happily appreciate it. And I know that I am at some point when the absolute zoo of paddles calms down that's coming into you and I, going to sit down and review those things. I know I texted him individually some feedback a few weeks ago on some of them, but he's got like the whole works going in terms of
Yeah.
pickleball. He's got grips, tungsten tape,
Clothing.
weights,
Yeah.
clothing, hats, accessories,
Yeah.
paddles. Like, if you really wanted to, you could be beyond measure head to toe. That hat is still one of my preferred on court hats. The only thing I don't like about it is that I sweat right through it
Yep.
exactly on a 2 hour session on the dot. So if I hit anything more than 2 hours, I have to swap it out. Outside of that, I love it, and I like that it's very simple and relaxed, and it goes with most outfit colorways.
Yeah.
I know he has additional colors of those coming, and he's very good about pricing with a lot of these things too. They're very fair to cheap prices. They're not crazy high by any means. I like the paddle too as well, to be clear. I do have a full review of it on my channel right now, so you guys can check that out. You can also check this. I know Cody's working on his review. Definitely check that out as well for sure on his channel. But yeah, so that's beyond measure. And I will touch on, before we kind of go into the ending segments here, there are a few other paddles we're working on and recently reviewed. I know I've been getting questions on the Xenon paddles, and I did review those. Those for me, look, it's a Gen 3 elongated paddle. I can go more in depth than that, and I do in the review, in particular on the JS16 of those two. But, to me, those are more just refining tech that we already have in the space than doing something crazy new, per se. So I'll kind of leave that there, which isn't a bad thing either. I think refinement is actually more important than, to a degree, innovation right now, just because we're at a point where tech is getting pretty good. I'd love to see something like a grit that's a lot more long-lasting, and then kind of even expand further into the long-lasting core stuff. All right, a 1-year warranty. What can we do to get this paddle to 2 years, to 3 years? I know lifetime is becoming a thing too, but it's tricky when people are warrantying a lifetime paddle after 3 months. To me, that's not really a lifetime's worth of durability. And so, I'd rather see the refinement in those kind of areas as well as performance in addition to the innovation is kind of how I'm looking at it. But, it does sound like there's innovation, and I know for a fact one of these paddles in our pipeline is definitely doing some stuff different that we can't put a name to yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, all right, my rant done. Let's talk. I know you've been off court for a bit. Let's talk mains of the week. All right, Cody, you're up first,
you go
my
first.
friend.
Okay,
he's spinning it. He's spinning it.
My main of the week, I would have to say, is the Gator Strike armor. It's the one that
Really?
It's the one that I've been playing with. It's been the one go-to because I've been trying to get the review time on. And last night I found a place in Kalispell, Montana to go play some games, and that was the paddle that I broke out, was the Gator Strike armor.
Wow.
If you were to say main of the week, that's been the go-to for me right now.
Wow. Also, first off, you guys got to give this man a lot of credit. Full family vacation, kids, wife, extended family, the works, and he's still finding a way to play pickleball, okay?
And I played against 2 pros.
No joke. All right? That is some dedication right there that I certainly appreciate, and I know everyone else will as well. Yes, this is a tough one for me right now. I for the past probably almost 3 months plus at this point, have mained the Vatic V-Sol Power Bloom, and I can tell you this much. It is not my main this week.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily because the paddle isn't doing anything good. I still think those paddles rock. I still recommend those all the time between the Pro and the Power there. Partnership that I'm currently in and in general have been wanting to get a little bit of more pop and power out of my game without turning into Error City and popping Dinks Up City. So I have been leaning a little more towards the Power category than the all court, kind of top of all court that I've been sitting in. For me, as of right now, I have been switching on and off between 2 paddles consistently for games that matter. My duper Friday night leagues, stuff like that, Moneyball, whatever it'll be. I've been switching between the V-Sol Pro Bloom and the 11624 APP Pegasus. I technically have not decided one or the other towards the main. I will say this though, as of right now, I lean more the Pegasus. The last kind of quote-unquote things of matter, that is how I'll put them. Not that any session doesn't matter, but, when you review, you kind of have to say, okay, I'm going to hit this for this amount of time and that for that. Yeah. So usually, like, if it's a league night for duper or something like that, I try to do it with a paddle I'm comfortable with at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Alpha Pro Power Pegasus has really been that paddle for me. And it's funny because I pondered this paddle as a main in like September of last year, and then went against it because I was leaning more towards going the Gen 4 route. And we revisited recently for the Cyclotron review to do a comparison review with the 2 of them as well. And I was like, wait a minute, this thing feels amazing. what am I doing here? Like, and so that's, if I had to pick one right now, I think that'd be it. I would not sell that VSOL Pro Bloom Vatic down by any means. I will admit though, I don't know if it's just my iteration or all of them though. This thing feels and sounds like a gunshot. Like it is probably the most poppy paddle I've ever hit with, to be honest. Like it's up there for sure. This thing has some serious pop. I compared it to the elongated long handle version, and it was way poppier than that to me. Not so much on baseline power, but on kitchen line pop. Like that ball just comes back fast off of this thing. It is a bright green and black paddle with a Christmas tree on it because it's the Christmas edition also, which is pretty awesome. You know, that was also leaning there looks wise. But, you know, yeah, I just, for me, like, I don't know if that's a level of pop I can handle yet, personally. But I've tried, I'm on my third weight iteration on this one now. I completely removed weight from the top of it. It's just the bottom corners now, which is, if you know me and my wide bodies, not something I do with them normally. Normally, if anything, I wrap the head with the weight because the wide bodies are already so stable on the bottom normally. And I find that making them kind of head heavier than they were usually balances the paddle out right. This is just like, if I try to do that with this one, the ball just goes out.
Yeah.
There's no, you can put as much top spin as you want and all that. The ball is not going to consistently go in, for me at least. So, but yeah, I mean, it's weird for me going backwards in gens almost in terms of mains, but you know, I will admit I've always thought the Alpha Pro Powers were some of the better feeling Gen 3 paddles as a line to me, and I said that even in my review of them. So, you know, which at this point is I think a 6+ month old review, but you know, yeah, I mean, you know, I'll be curious to see, you know, a paddle that reminds me of that a lot right now is this RPM Friction Pro 14 millimeter, with the main difference it being elongated. You know, if they do a wide body of that, I'd be curious to see how that plays and stuff like that. So, yeah, a lot of main shakeups. I'm shocked you left the boomstick.
Like I said, it's the boomsticks, like, I still love the boomstick, but I've just been swapping paddles so much right now that the Gator Strike I would have to just say it's my paddle of the week right now because it's the one I've been playing with primarily. But I have one, two,
I mean, this is
three.
the big review time right now. I feel you.
Yeah, 3, 4, 5. I mean, I think I have like 6 paddles on the way, or you know, that are already here. So there's a lot that could change up between the next little bit. So, but speaking of shakeups, before we go to Q&A, I saw that you posted a Q&A earlier. I'm sure you have something that you're gonna be twisting up here soon. Shakeups. What are your thoughts on ALW to Franklin and to Nike?
Ooh, he went with the hard hitter out of the gate here. Okay. W to Franklin and Nike. I'm going to take the clothing piece of this first because I think that it's the one that makes the most sense to me out of the two. I think this was a no-brainer. If Nike's going to come into pickleball, you come with the undisputed world number one, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think in all 3 categories, she is without a doubt the best player. The second best player in singles is like not really that close to her, to be honest. Like,
no.
I don't think she's lost a singles match in over a year at this point.
Yeah.
So I think that she definitely is that's the type of athlete that Nike is looking for and wants. It's a no-brainer to me. My only question would be, what's the dollar amount? How many years? What's the contract details? And, you know, pros and cons. That would be my question. And it sounds like to me that she probably negotiated pretty toughly with that. So I'm pretty willing to bet she's going to make a lot of money off of it. Not that she needs, she already makes a ton probably, but you know, her to Franklin is honestly the more interesting one to me because I feel like Franklin's roster is now really deep.
It is.
But I think it's a little too deep now because what happens to the Johnsons?
Yeah.
Ignore that guy. Sorry. What happens to the Johnsons? What happens to, you know,
Hayden Patrick?
I think they have like Will Howells. They have like a bunch of people too. You know, what happens to that? I think in terms of paddle, it makes sense. I think the C45 technology is fairly similar to the Paddletech technology
Mm-hmm.
that she's leaving. I know that I think Paddletech just pretty much absorbed Pro XR, something like
Yeah.
that. I've been seeing all over Instagram that all the Pro XR pros are signed with Paddletech now, which
Mm-hmm.
basically just tells me they're on the same contract that they were probably on before.
Yep.
But who knows? To each their own there. Yeah, I think that is a more interesting change. The paddle mold and shape looks identical though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no doubt that look, if she really wanted to play the same paddle, they'll paint over it. Like they'll find a way. Look, she's a world number one of, multiple years plus now. If she wants
Yeah.
something, it's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I look at that one. What's your take on those?
I can't disagree with anything that you're saying, but for her being, I think, only 18, maybe she's 19 now, she carries herself super professionally, and I respected her statement of why Nike. And I'm sure there's, a laundry list of things, but being, younger and Nike being around since I was a kid, Nike was, like, the one of the iconic sports brands out there, and I think, being Nike swoosh athlete is something that's a dream to a lot of people. Same as like being sponsored by Red Bull is big for, those high speed type of, motocross, snowmobiling, bungee jumping, being signed by a Red Bull company is on the same level. But also, I think with Nike and Annalie Waters is a huge statement into the pickleball like community and how serious pickleball is now. Everybody looks at it as like, oh, pickleball's this hobby and it's this, it's that, it's for old people. But now you have this number one 18-year-old, 19-year-old female pro. I think it's putting pickleball to that next level on the map of it's no longer just this hobby, it's just a game. It's an actual sport and it's for real. And I think by Nike jumping into that is a huge compliment to the sport itself. And that's what I appreciate out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that, that kind of just says, look, the sport has grown so much that we have pretty much the top sports brand in the world is invested now in
Hmm.
equity of the sport. Anna Lee being the equity, but still, if you look at like the NBA and like multiple of the other, big sports leagues, Nike is like the retail authorized sponsor. I'm
Hmm.
sure they didn't just pay a ton of money to go get Anna Lee to then her get forced to wear like Adidas for Major League Pickleball or something,
Yeah.
or something like that, or whatever it is. So it's like, or whatever, if they do like a tour wide sponsors. I think that the tour definitely wins as well, in particular the PPA tour for sure.
Yeah.
The APP, God bless them. I don't know how this helps them, but to each their own there. Yeah, I mean, anyways, let's dive into Q&A. I liked that though. That was a good question. I was not expecting that. All right, let me look at this quick. One sec. All right, we got Q&A here. I did not post this too far in advance of us recording this, so there might not be a ton. We got two. We can rock with that. All right. First one was thoughts on the RPM. So
Okay.
again, I'm the only one that has it. I think it's good. I think it's got a lot of potential. My questions would be durability, longevity, and grit longevity. You can answer those three questions for me with the Gen 3 paddle. You're in a pretty good spot if you can answer them positively, that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at most paddles, to be honest, but Gen 3 in particular, just to the deteriorating, core percentage that we've had with Gen 3 paddles. And it's never fun when that happens. Like, I've never once been like, wow, I'm so excited this happened to my paddle. Maybe really early on when like none of us knew what was happening and we're like, oh, hey, our paddle hits harder now. But now
Hmm.
it's like, it's just more of a hassle, I find
Yeah.
now with that. So that's kind of my thoughts on those. If it can answer those questions well, great. If not, then we'll see down the road. In terms of, our next Q&A here, which has what are you looking forward to most in 2026? I'm going to let you take that, Cody.
I mean, I'm always looking forward to, testing out paddles and seeing what companies are going to do for innovation, whether it's, spin technology, it's power. I think I said it on our best of 2025. I think 2026 is going to be a year that paddles companies are getting away from pure power and going to more of like a controlled power. I think it's gonna be the year of like an aggressive all court style of paddle. I think the chasing of like the who can hit the hardest and the fastest type of thing is gonna kind of go away. But my nearest huge excitement for 2026 is coming up here in the beginning of February, and you and I chatted a little bit, but is official. I am going to a UPA combine and testing for a semi-pro team, and that's February 7th.
My guy's going pro, guys. Let's go. We got to root him on.
It's
Like,
semi-pro, semi-pro.
hey, in all seriousness, you need to be there live streaming this thing. All right.
I've
Like, I don't
recruited the
care.
wife.
Whatever.
She's gonna be there
Like,
doing all the videoing.
dude, I like get her on the gimbal, get like a second one up top in the bleachers or something in this massive stadium that you're gonna be in.
No, it's not
Like
nothing
live
like that.
stream this bad boy. Dinkin' Donuts YouTube channel. Let's watch this thing. No, I'm sure you'll do.
Will I will do a probably more of like a vlog style of what it's gonna look like. I'm not sure if it's both days, if it's one day. It looks like it's gonna be a multi-hour as long as it's a one day thing. And we'll see what they have. Again, it's nothing crazy. It's a local team over in the Washington state area, but it does sound like if I were to make the team or whatever it is, it's a 18-week um long season, and
Oof.
I don't know where we're playing at, who we're playing, how far we're traveling, or anything like that. So there's still a lot of unknown. It's very, early in the stages, but it was something that got pushed out, saw, and I figured, give it a shot, see what it looks like, see what that next level is like.
God bless you, dude. That's like 5 months of work almost right there on that. 18 weeks. That's crazy. I mean,
We'll
hey, I
see.
get it though. It's a semi-pro team. They have a legitimate schedule. What's the team name that you're trying out for?
It's so Spokane Badgers.
Ooh, you're gonna be a Badger, maybe.
Badger. So we'll see.
Badgers. All right, all right. I like it, dude.
Couple
That's
of
exciting.
couple of my friends are, I guess, like sponsors. I'm not sure their exact involvement, but Briotti Shades, they're a sponsor of the team. Vice Pickleball Grips, that is Briotti and another partner. They're going to dive into the grips and tungsten tape and that type of stuff. So I'm excited for, they're friends of mine. So it's exciting to see them in that venture. And then I think the place that's hosting the like combine, which is the pickle press, or it might just be the press. They're located in Spokane. They're the one that are going to be hosting the combine. So, and I know the owner or the partial owner of that as well. So it's cool to see friends and like acquaintances, taking pickleball into the next level of our, community. So it'll be cool just to go try out and see what the combine's like. If I make the team, then awesome. If not, then it's not that big of a deal. I mean, again, being a career and then trying to fit an 18-week, semi-pro league will be challenging, but hey, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to experience it. So
Yeah, man. I'm wishing you the best of luck with that. It's definitely exciting. Keep us updated. Let us know how it is. We'll
yeah,
watch your quote unquote vlogs, which I still think is the funniest term ever because everyone's vlogging these days.
yeah,
And it's just a funny word to say in general. But
yeah.
yeah, and to kind of spin that question this way quick, I think the thing I'm looking forward to most is, at least on the pickleball front of things, is continuing to play, competing when I'm able to. Kind of this self-run league that we've been doing over here has been nice. It's been small duper data, but it's been data nonetheless, which, I'm kind of appreciating over the, whatever tournament every, 1 to 2 months where it's one big day or 2 big days of intense duper data and then you get
Yeah.
nothing for like the next 30 to 60 days. I think
Yeah.
I'd rather it slowly, consistently, because then it's going to show really that kind of up to down improvement to, kind of long term range of data and growth. So I've really been enjoying that. It has not done much for my actual duper personally, but It's only been like a week or two of this league, so I'm excited about that. I'm definitely excited to do tournaments when I'm able to. I'm not doing as many as I used to, but it's also because just of the volume that we're kind of reviewing at now. It's
Yeah.
really tough to do that. And I think review to the best of your ability for
Yeah.
sure, which is why I commend you doing this semi-pro, all that tryout. And I mean, hey, you can do it. That's awesome. Like, so, but yeah, I mean, other than that, looking forward to making more pods with you, ideally from my own studio. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
all right,
we're also
man.
gonna 2026. I keep saying it outside the pod, but either 2026 we're gonna make it happen, an in-person pod, whether it's me over in the
Yes,
Boston area,
yes, probably the summer, but yes.
you in the Coeur d'Alene area. We'll make something happen.
Yes, probably summer, but we'll make that happen. Yes.
Cool. I got nothing else, so
I got nada, man. You're good. All right.
all right.
Adios, team.